Okay, in this one we will be discussing Jesuit tradition and Ignatian spirituality. I have Emmanuel here. Say hi.
Hi, Hunter. Thank you for having me.
All right, so the first question is what makes Jesuit spirituality distinct from other Christian spiritual traditions?
Sure, Hunter, that's a really good question, actually, considering I go to a Jesuit university and I want to focus on one specific phrase, cura personalis, which essentially means to focus on the whole person rather than individual components. And I think this is particularly something that makes it distinct from other traditions where we care about people's circumstances, we care about their mental being, physical health, essentially everything that involves with the person, apart from just very specific cases. And I think Georgetown does a really good job of doing all those things, providing priests on lots of floors in order to help out students in regards to almost anything. And so I've really enjoyed these Jesuit traditions, and as well as their focus on the students and the entire human being, no matter what the circumstances, as opposed to maybe other institutions that just focus on, let's just say, physical health or mental health.
Yeah, for me, I think the Jesuit spirituality is distinct because it emphasizes finding God in all things as well as cura personalis. But finding God in all things for Georgetown specifically, just seeing how God is present in everyday life is very practical and reflective, and it emphasizes discernment and making faith. Just seeing God's presence in like study and work and relationships and serving others as well as struggle and pain. So yeah. Okay, nothing else to add. Cool. The next question is, what is the purpose of the examen and why is reflection so central to Ignatian spirituality?
Yeah, so I think well, first of all, an examen is a spiritual reflection, at least from what I understand, in terms of you kind of see yourself and how you play within certain circumstances. As for an example, we used to breathe in peace and breathe out no.
No. It's a breathe in.
Generosity? No, breathe out generosity.
Breathe out generosity.
Breathe
Breathe
in.
in humility.
No.
No. Breathe in gratitude.
Gratitude. And breathe out generosity, yes.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a very specific example of an examen, or part of it that we did, was breathe in gratitude, breathe out generosity. And I think that's very important because I think specifically here at Georgetown, we oftentimes forget what it is to be generous, and also what it means to be thankful for all the things that we have. And obviously, we're very privileged to be on this campus. And I find myself to actually take this idea of generosity and gratitude even further with some of the involvement I have on campus, particularly with the tutoring that I do, and then furthermore, tutoring in an organization called the Institute for College Preparation, which we work with students, 7th graders and 8th graders that come to campus and kind of go a day in the life of kind of like a Georgetown student. Georgetown does have a lot of resources that provides opportunities for those that may not be as privileged in that sense. So I think that part of the examen and what we've been taught by Father Bosco has really had an impact on how I've gone to live my life, my experience here at Georgetown. Another key component to the examen is reflecting on what God is asking from us and how He wants us to live our life, and if we're doing a good job. And that may be subjective for everyone and what that means. But I think that is a big part of the examen, is just finding your relationship with God and seeing kind of where you're at in that process. And it's fine if you're not at the point you want to be. But obviously, I think the goal is to eventually get to a point where you see that you're actually making progress towards it, and not going backwards. And to the second question, why is reflection so central to the Ignatian spirituality? I think, furthermore, reflecting on specifically gratitude and generosity is also reflection on humility, I think, which is a very big part of Ignatian spirituality, is living a humble lifestyle, caring for those that may not, as I mentioned, may not be as privileged, um, whatever the case may be right now, or even with the ICE raids, right, caring for those whose families are fearing of deportation. Um, and so part of the reflection of the examen is also not to see yourself above others, and put yourself in those shoes. Once again, I bring it back to Georgetown because we this is the place where we're at, and we've been here for a couple of years. But I think Georgetown does a really good job in creating community and embracing those Jesuit values and traditions. I don't think for anyone in the class we should stop doing examens, and I think we should continue these practices in our lives. Yeah, even after Georgetown.
Yeah, wow, that was a really great answer.
Thank you, Hunter.
Of course. But the only thing that I would add is that the pilgrimage as a whole kind of felt like a parallel to an examen, just generally. The examen, we took time out of class to reflect and to think about our day and how God was present in our day, and where we responded well, where we saw grace, where we resisted it, and where we are being invited to grow. And I think just generally that parallels the pilgrimage trip as a whole, because we took a week out of our busy schedules, out of our lives, to be reflective on our spiritual life, on our spiritual health and understanding. And I think that I even in the book of Saint Ignatius's autobiography, which we all read, I know we all did. uh, I think that pilgrimage as a whole is just really, it exemplifies Ignatian spirituality in as a whole.
Yeah, I think even to your point, and I guess to provide a concrete example, when we did the examen at St. Paul's Basilica while we were in Rome, um, I think just being in such a peaceful environment and being in a group while we're on this pilgrimage, this was also on around day 4 or 5, just reflecting on what we have done and what we are going to do and how far we had come, considering since the first day we were kind of all looking forward to this trip. It just made it feel even more surreal because I think at this point, friendships were already being made. And I think everyone is definitely getting a lot more comfortable with each other. I mean, yeah, I think that just shows how community was already forming. And I think back to that exam a lot. You almost just reflect on the circumstances that you're in right now and just come to appreciate everything that you have and everything that's going to come.
Yeah, and I think the last thing that I'll end off with for this question is just touching on why reflection is central to Ignatian spirituality. And I really do think this plays on the cura personalis aspect of the Jesuit tradition, just because the examen, it is supposed to be a reflective exercise to understand your spiritual health. And I think that plays a large role in caring for the entire person. Um, so just helping yourself help others. And then our third question is, how does Jesuit spirituality connect personal faith with social justice?
Yeah, I think I've kind of touched on this on the last question with kind of my relationship with ICP, the
Mm-hmm.
organization on campus. But I think if we were to go even broader than that, I mean, obviously Georgetown does provide lots of scholarships for those that aren't as privileged in order to come here. And I think one of the biggest things, as I mentioned, about Jesuit spirituality is kind of this level of humility, caring for one another, caring for people despite the circumstances. Yeah, caring for the entire person and despite where they may come from or where they may lie on certain views. And yeah, I think that ties also to the key point of social justice. I mean, yeah, right. Equality for all, inclusivity, equal resources, equal opportunity, and there's obviously much more with social justice, and there's a lot of ethical issues that do exist currently. However, if you do follow the Jesuit spirituality, and if more people follow that, then we can make more progress towards social justice, despite the barriers that do currently exist, yeah, in our lives right now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what to add, but yeah, so I think the only thing that I would add is that just a little bit of like syllogistic logic as far as connecting personal faith with social justice. So the Jesuit spirituality emphasizes that God is found in all things. So if God is found in all things, then God must also be encountered in the poor and the marginalized and the suffering. And so I think that the Jesuit spirituality shows how God is present in everything, including the suffering, the marginalization. That kind of brings us to another question of, if God is found in all things, how do we understand suffering, failure, and doubt, and those kind of negative feelings? And so I think the way that I would answer this is that
Are we
uh,
on to that question?
yeah,
I thought we skipped the.
yeah, we did. Yeah, it's just a natural transition.
It is a natural transition, actually.
Yeah, so, which is why we probably should reorder this. But anyways, it's fine. I think the biggest thing with this is that painful experiences can become places of discernment and of growth and compassion. And then it also really emphasizes the dependence that we as people have on God. And although he may not cause suffering, he can still be encountered within it. So I think that's like the biggest thing that I see. It doesn't mean I don't see it as a place where God is automatically like absent. I just see it as places of being tested and being, I guess, a chance to exemplify your true faith to God.
Yeah, it's a very good answer to the last question of this podcast, or the second to last if we can reorder.
Yeah, we'll reorder.
um, but yeah, I think one of the biggest experiences in Rome that touches to this question, as I mentioned in my journal, is the Scala Santa that we did, where I think a lot of us were actually scared to go on our knees and go all the way to the top on like 30 something stairs.
Wait, okay, so I didn't know that we were doing that. And I just showed up and I was like, oh. Like, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think any of us were. I mean, I like kind of knew what it was about, but then when we showed up, it was actually like, wow, we're gonna do this. And I didn't really think I was gonna make it. As I stated, I have really bad knees. And so I was actually terrified too. And I think after the first step, I was really considering dropping out because it was extremely painful. But I think in that pain and in that suffering, I found myself kind of transitioning from a mentality of pain and suffering to a mentality of reflection and prayer. Um, and so we had talked about kind of seeing beauty within suffering throughout the Passion of Christ. And there was also some sort of beauty within this suffering because, once again, I guess, through this pain and through this suffering, I was able to I found myself praying for people that I really cared about, praying for the group I was with, praying for, being just extremely grateful for the trip we were able to have. And I think within the suffering, you kind of just come to appreciate a lot more. I mean, you come to appreciate the life God has given you. You come to appreciate your family. You come to appreciate your friends. And I mean, this is such a small suffering that one is experiencing, and It just kind of reminds you that there's so much more suffering in the world that's going on right now, and kind of reflecting and praying for those who are going through much more difficult times, who find themselves in isolation, who find themselves without a family, who find themselves in times of war, in times of need. Um, and so, yeah, I think through the suffering that we were able to do on those steps, it kind of just, at least for me, um, made me appreciate what we do have in life, the opportunities. But just as we have those opportunities, going back to the Jesuit tradition, it also helped me to reflect on giving back to the community. And I think I never shared this story with anyone, and now on this podcast, I'll share it. When I went to St. Peter's Basilica, I was walking around. It was about like 6:30 in the morning, and there was a lot of homeless actually around St. Peter's. And I got to the very end, and I had no clue where to go. And when this homeless guy comes up to me, and I was not to be to be honest, I was kind of scared. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, like, what are you looking for?" And I'm like, "I'm looking for the mass." And he's like, "Oh, just wait in line here, and this is how you get into St. Peter's." And without thinking it, I ended up giving this. He was a young man. I gave him $20. I think at this point in the trip, I was just so grateful that he was leading me to, like, we were kind of bonded through religion, through the spiritual faith, and he was being honest about where the mass was, and eventually I did end up going to mass. And so I think that was just a very that moment specifically made me remember that no matter how poor you may be, how rich you may be, how privileged, spirituality lives within everyone, and religion is not just for those who are privileged, not those for those with um, who have like certain benefits and stuff like that. It's a place for everyone. It's a place of welcoming. It's a place of opportunity. It's a place when you enter the church, everyone is humbled by it. And so I think that was a really good reminder that within suffering and within failure and within doubt, I mean, I'm sure people living on the street, there's always a sense of, well, why is this for me? Why is God putting me in these places? Um, and I think part of that is not that He's putting us, but it's almost like, well, how do we grow out of this, and how do we kind of what is God asking of us? And I'm sure all of us have gone through really tough times, and I think God really wants us to grow. God also really wants us to teach us a lesson, teach us humility. I think in this case specifically with the homeless, I think He's, um, I mean, teaching me about humility, teaching me to care about others. I think as Father Francis would always say, tutti tutti tutti, everyone, everyone, everyone. To no matter who they are, you care for them and treat them the same. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Jesuit spirituality is community, welcoming, and yeah, not to be biased or prejudiced towards. For more of a case where I've encountered suffering or failure, I guess, but more specifically, suffering was last year. I ended up going on medical leave, and that was such a hard time because, I mean, being in pain and despite these things I was going through, I just didn't know why I was being put in this situation. Being my fall semester for senior year, and I think having gone back home and having been with my family, it's almost a lesson to kind of just once again appreciate what you have. Coming out of that situation, I've been so much more grateful, so much more appreciative, and I mean, coming back for the spring semester, what better way than to be in Rome with my friends for an entire week. So, yeah, I think God can definitely be found in all things. It's just how do we interpret when we are in those situations? How do we grow out of it? And more importantly, what can we do for those who are suffering and who are going through doubt? I won't say failure because I don't think anyone is failing at anything. It's just they haven't found a way to kind of escape the bubble or escape the barriers that they're in. But I do believe that no one reaches complete failure. It's just they may reach extreme doubt, but within that doubt, there's always ways to grow, ways to find God. And part of being a Jesuit, or part of being a Catholic, is to invite others to the church, invite others to prayer, invite others to community. And yeah, and I think if we do those things, inviting others and praying for others, that is when we will find God in all things. And we meaning hopefully everyone in this world.
Thank you for sharing. That was a great answer. Going to Rome with your friends. No one was friends with each other until Rome. But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to add. I think that covered everything. I definitely like God can be found in all things, can be concretely applied to real life. I thought that was a really interesting and great addition. I think we can move on to our final question, which is actually the fourth question, but I did it out of order. So, in what ways does the Jesuit tradition encourage both faith and questioning?
Yeah, I think the big question to focus on here is what it means to be religious and what it means to be spiritual. One of the biggest themes that we touched on in class, and I think coming into this class, the vast majority of us, I think, said we were religious and we were spiritual. But I
I
think
think all of us did.
maybe all of us did. Yeah, but I think at least in my case, I think I came in more religious. I think I had touched on the fact that my family had been very religious, and we all grew up Catholic, and so we all kind of follow these laws and just saw that was a path because our parents had kind of taught us that. But being at Georgetown, I've definitely been a lot more spiritual, a lot more engaged within the community. Having friends that want to go with you to church as well also helps build that spirituality. Also with swag, hosting prayers that I've been invited to, praying the rosary in Copley Crypt with the Jesuit tradition. And the only exposure I've had is Georgetown, so I'll focus on Georgetown. Through these communities that do exist on campus, I've been able to definitely grow within my spirituality, grow within my faith. And to the example of Rome and having mass at the crypt that was it wasn't a hotel, it was
Convent.
at the convent. Thank you, Hunter. Having those masses at the convent kind of helped me. It felt like I was at Georgetown, which is kind of strange because the church definitely looks like something that you would not find somewhere in the U.S., but having this kind of community-oriented mass made me feel like I was back at Georgetown. So it also helped me kind of carry my Jesuit values and Jesuit faith and stuff that I've learned from Georgetown and carry them into mass. And I think that's one way in which it encourages faith, is that no matter where you are in the world, your Jesuit traditions and values will always carry through. And in what ways does it encourage questioning? Well, I think it encourages questioning in the sense of, I guess I kind of already answered this, but how do we grow with God? Are we living the lifestyle we want to live? Are we on that right path, or whatever that means to one another? And so, yeah, I think the questioning is not so much of, do I believe in God? Or at least, not for everyone, but at least for me, it's not so much, do I believe in God? Am I Catholic? Not so much that is, I've already, I know who God is, but how can I grow? How can I further my relationship with God? It's more of a growth rather than a doubt. And so I think the Jesuit tradition really encourages growth, really encourages spirituality, encourages community, encourages friendships, and encourages, I think I'll mention this again, it encourages humility, just to be appreciative of, once again, of what you have, but also acknowledge that there are others around you that don't have the same goods, and so we should be more helpful, and just care for everyone.
Yeah, I think the way that...
Oh wow, you didn't say that was a great answer.
Sorry, that's a great answer. I think the way in which I would say that the Jesuit tradition encourages both faith and questioning is that I think I was one of those few people who thought about the existence of God and how it kind of contradicts the idea of, intellectual honesty and finding the truth within, especially as far as the existence of God goes. And I always saw that as a contradiction, probably because, I don't know. Had a lot of conversations with like my roommate, for example, who's I'm gonna quote him here. He says he's agnostic to not piss off Christians. That's how he phrases it. But I think the idea of encouraging questioning and finding the truth is not necessarily a threat to the belief in God, but it's a way of clarifying and deepening your faith within Him. And I think that a lot of the truth and finding what the truth is oriented towards God Himself. So I now that I understand it a little bit more deeply, I think that it's not necessarily a contradiction the way that I previously interpreted it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm happy you found that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it also shows through your personality. It shows through the way you've grown since the first day I've met you. There's definitely a lot more. You've come to definitely grow as a person, religiously, and also just as a human being. And yeah, that's very good. I feel very honored that you were able to open up
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can continue growing as a friend, spiritually, as Hoyas.
You're like my
and
elder.
continue. Yes, I'm like your elder, essentially. And carrying these Jesuit values.
Okay. Thank you for
Awesome.
joining me today.
This is a great interview.
Yeah.